Right, so we are recording this evening, and this meeting will be up tomorrow or the next day on the NEWRA.org website. Tonight, we're delighted to welcome both candidates who are running to be our next state senator, Anthony D'Ambrosio and Lydia Edwards. Anthony will be up first. Lydia will speak a little bit later in the program. They're going to talk about their vision and their platform, and then they'll take questions from everybody. So raise your hand, or actually put your hand up, and we'll look for it, or send me a text. I'll put my cell phone in the chat, and we'll open your mic and you can ask a question, but just please be respectful so that everybody has a chance to ask questions. So be respectful of time. Our next meeting is December 9th. Same thing, we'll still be on Zoom. Hopefully we'll be able to meet again in person in the new year. Please remember to renew your NEWRA membership. You can do it online at NEWRA.org. I just have one community update, and then John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services is going to give us a few updates. ISD Environmental Services is going to do a walkthrough in the next 30 days, looking at the neighborhood in the high rodent population areas. And Kirsten Hoffman from NEWRA is going to be working with them. Thank you very much, Kirsten, for doing that. And John, your mic is open, John Romano, so please give us an update.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. This is John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. I'm sorry I don't have my camera on today. I'm having some internet trouble, so I'm trying to save it so you can at least hear me from here.
We all have been.
Thank you, Cheryl. So I have two major updates that I want to share with everyone. The first being that we actually have the Mayor's Trolley Tour is decided on December 5th. That's a Sunday, and there should be an estimated time of about 3 p.m. at the Paul Revere Mall. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware. Please come out. It's going to be a great event. It's going to be nice to be able to see the trolley tour come by and start having some of our annual events come through, especially for the holiday season. So I look forward to seeing everyone then. Also, I wanted to talk about just a little bit more about the outdoor dining and talking about the committee as well. So one of the steps that we're going to do next is that we're working on with the outdoor dining committee citywide on kind of what that process will look like for the city. We still have some unanswered questions on what that will look like for next year. So once we have figured out what that citywide process might be and some of the challenges that we're working on with the state, we'll then bring that committee, the outdoor dining committee specific to the North End, back together so we can work on what that might look like in our community if it could come back at all. So I just wanted to share those two major things with you all. And thank you, Cheryl, again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Do you want to do anything on snow or heat?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to end up sending, we were going to get an update, and I'm going to end up being able to send that out to you all shortly. I just don't have that just yet. But thank you, Cheryl.
No worries. I just thought you might have that. Okay, so let's Anthony, I'm going to open your mic. Please, everyone, welcome Anthony D'Ambrosio. He is running for the state Senate seat that was vacated by Joe Boncory, who had been our state senator for quite some time. Anthony, welcome to NEWRA.
Thank you so much. And looking at some of the crowd, I'm lucky to have met a number of you all. So I'd like to thank you all for having me here tonight. I'll dive right into my background and then hope you guys can fire away some questions. But I'm the proud son of immigrants to this district. My entire family is comprised of either first or second generation immigrants to the district, primarily from Southern Italy. My father immigrated over in 1972. He was the son of migrant laborers and farmers, tobacco and olive farmers in Avellino, Italy, and initially immigrated to East Boston. My mother's family immigrated to Winthrop, and I had cousins, aunts, and uncles who came to the North End, Revere, and whatnot. I personally am from the city of Revere, born and raised, and that is why I have the great fortune of speaking with all of you tonight. And over the course of this campaign, the First Suffolk and Middlesex District has given my family everything, and I look forward to the opportunity of representing it in the Senate. My father and mother worked tirelessly to provide my siblings and I, my cousins and I, every one of my generation and my family, opportunities that they never could have dreamed of at our age, pulling 15 to 18-hour workdays. Still to this date, my grandfather, who came to this country with my father in tote in the early 70s, still pushes a lawnmower around Boston and Revere for 16 hours a day as his primary form of work. And it's those values, that work ethic that has brought me to where I am today, and that has given my family the opportunity to succeed in this country, in the state, and in this district. With the mentorship and the amazing support of my community in my home city here in Revere, I was able to focus in high school and study hard with that immigrant mentality. I graduated at the top of my class from Yale University, and I went on to England to get my master's at the University of Cambridge. Following that, in 2019, after 5 years away from the state and from the district, I returned to my home city of Revere and ran for the school committee. I was very lucky to come in first place of 9 candidates, topping the ticket and setting a whole host of electoral records within the city of Revere. And on the school committee, I've been blessed to have a number of significant policy victories. First is I was able to spearhead the implementation of one of the state's first equity advisory boards that mandates and legislates on a whole host of labor-oriented and cultural-oriented issues within our schools. Secondarily, I spearheaded the implementation of a system-wide mental health audit. This was incredibly important coming out of the COVID-19 crisis, as so many of our students were falling behind in the realm of mental health, social, and emotional learning. And third, I've stood with organized labor consistently in our district. I was blessed to receive the endorsement of the Revere Teachers Association just a few weeks ago for standing with the teachers and other organized labor groups within our district, even when it wasn't popular to do so. I have significant experience within the public sector outside of the Revere School Committee. From 2015 to 2018, I led a large nonprofit organization called Dwight Hall that dealt with a whole host of community issues, ranging from homelessness to hunger to public health issues. And I have an extensive private sector experience as well. Prior to this campaign, I'm campaigning full-time now, but I worked in corporate strategy, where I've given advice to some of the top technology CEOs in the entire world and been a part of the top technology mergers of the past several years. It's this blend of public and private sector experience that gives me a tremendous opportunity in lens to understand and legislate, and I look forward to hopefully winning your votes over the course of the next several months. If I'm just going to be honest, when we first started this campaign, we were the supreme underdogs. I was the supreme underdog, and that's something my family's always taken to heart. Now, with just a few weeks to go, we're a leading campaign, consistently topping in the polls and on the streets, and we're blessed to be in that opportunity. But we're going to continue to work hard after the election and work hard to represent the North End in every way that I possibly can. We're at a pivotal moment in the history of not only the state, but in this country, where we need healing, and we need to emerge from this pandemic economically, socially, and culturally in a way that can't be done given the current mantra of our leaders and in the current path that we have been set ahead on, that has left us so unprepared to tackle the tremendous issues that the 2020s will throw in our faces. I stand ready to combat those challenges, and I'm happy to talk a bit about my platform or answer any questions to all who may have them. But thank you all for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have a question? I'm looking to see if anybody put their hand up. Nothing in the chat yet. Come on, somebody's got to have a question. No questions. All right, well, while you are all formulating a question, I will ask one. Anthony, what's the first thing you would do if you are a state senator? What legislation would you file? Talk to us a little bit about what you see needs to be done on Beacon Hill. What are your priorities in terms of legislation?
Absolutely. So thank you. One of the first things I would look at would be making access to broadband internet a utility within the state of Massachusetts and a right within the state of Massachusetts. Coming out of the pandemic, we saw issues regarding equity and access to broadband hit us very starkly within the city of Revere and the city of Boston in general. Our students within the city of Revere were forced to go into remote learning because of safety conditions for almost 2 years. in a good majority of households within the city of Revere, particularly inhabited by our low-income students, were unable to access basic broadband capabilities, which obviously presented significant challenges to them as all of their schooling was remote. A lot of our job seekers coming out of this pandemic were unable to access the growing remote economy. And it makes sense when you learn that about a third of households in this district don't have access to affordable broadband internet services. Just a few miles from where the internet was championed in Cambridge, half a century ago. This is a problem going into the 2020s when the fastest growing segment of the job market is in the technology sector and the remote technology sector. We stand to fall behind educationally and with access to these jobs if we don't break the often monopoly of broadband providers within the state, and we do not make significant inroads in the Senate and legislature to provide access to broadband internet, to make it cheaper and to make it far more accessible than it is within our more urban environments within the district. It's more than just an issue of accessing the job market or accessing education. It's about accessing opportunity. And in 2021, this shouldn't even be a discussion, but for whatever reason it is, and we're just beginning to have it. That would be one of our first legislative focuses immediately on day one after being sworn in.
Sorry, my mic is closed. Jen, your mic is open. Jen Crampton.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Jen Crampton and I live on Atlantic Ave in the North End. So here in the North End and a lot of, along the seacoast in our state, there's a lot of issues with climate change preparedness and dealing with rising tides. And I wanted to see what your stance is, because right now we're here, there's a lot of talk happening about like things that could be done, but it feels like each neighborhood and even individual property owners are kind of doing their own thing, which doesn't really help the whole, and also really doesn't help some of the more disenfranchised neighborhoods that have, don't have the money per se to come up with these solutions. So I'm curious what your stance is there and how you would potentially direct federal and or state funds into making our waterfront climate ready.
Absolutely. This is an issue that not only Boston faces, but Revere and Winthrop face significantly as well as coastal communities. I just live a few miles from the beach and our coastline is a mess as well. So what I'd respond to that is we need to have coordinated state down standards of coastal resiliency if we're going to effectively combat the rise of sea levels, increased storm surge, and more erratic weather that is all but inevitable over the course of the next decade. As you said, it seems that individual properties, public and private, and individual districts treat their coastline very differently within the district and state at large. And it doesn't just seem that way, it's true. At the beginning of this campaign, I was lucky to take a tour with the New England Aquarium of the Boston waterfront area, which bleeds into the North End, obviously, and just seeing how different parcels of land treat those resiliency efforts quite differently was astonishing. We need top-down leadership from the state that mandates certain resources being poured into both public and private land at the coast. And we need to take away what is right now very much within the jurisdiction of private property owners, the ability to treat their coastal areas and their shorelines in irresponsible ways, in ways that aren't sustainable going forward over the course of the next decade. There's no reason why the area right outside of, say, Christopher Columbus Park should be treated differently from the rest of the Boston coastline, or should be more prepared than the rest of the Boston coastline to deal with increased storm surge and rising tides. But right now it is. So I would be a strong advocate of top-down guidance from the state and legislative mandates that give private property owners, more than direction. They give them mandates with regard to how to treat their coastlines.
Does anyone else have any more questions? I don't see any hands up. Looking to see if anybody is literally putting their hand up physically. Nope. Is there anything else you want to share with us, Anthony? About
Dave Kubiak has his hand up.
Oh, thank you. Oh, there it goes. Hold on, Dave. There you go.
Hi, thank you. That was a very good introduction, and I appreciate it, Anthony.
Thank you, sir.
Michelle Wu, I should say Mayor Wu, wants to make a lot of major changes that Boston sorely needs, in my opinion, and that will require home rule petitions and legislative action. Are you familiar with those initiatives, and are you willing to carry them forward into the legislature and support those initiatives?
Unequivocally, yes. I think we align pretty straightly on most of. I assume you're talking about client-oriented and climate-oriented initiatives.
Yeah,
and how
what do you mean, Dave? Which initiatives are you talking about? Are you talking about the free tea, rent control?
Oh, okay, because it would
I
help
mean,
to narrow it down.
Dave, let me open Dave's mic again. Let him be specific. Where did you go, Dave?
There, I'm back.
Yeah.
So one of them, and one of my questions was, are you familiar with the initiatives that she's been talking about for quite a long time, and even for a long time as city councilor? For instance, she wants to eliminate the BRA, or I should say, replace the Boston Redevelopment Authority with a planning agency accountable to the mayor and the citizens of Boston, and a separate development agency. That's just one. Another one are changes she wants to make to the MBTA. Now, she has specifically referred to free tea rides, but major changes are needed in Boston for public transportation to be sustainable. And those are just a couple of them. There's probably others that I'm not thinking of at the moment. Or maybe the school committee changes might require legislative action. I'm not sure.
Sure, and it's a great question. So I'll take those hand in hand. Broadly, we're in step here with regard to the school committee. I'm obviously a fan of an elected school committee. I am an elected member of my own city's school committee, and an elected school committee just means increased accountability, which is always a good thing in 2021 when it seems that our elected officials are ever so increasingly unaccountable to the public eye. With regard to freeing the tea, I've been a broad supporter of freeing the tea for a long time. I'm a daily user of the Blue Line. I take the Beachmont stop in Revere into Aquarium almost every day when, now I'm campaigning full time, but prior to that, to get to work. And I view a free tea as a driver of economic growth and equity within the district at large. The tea is one of the greatest potential drivers of economic growth, but if we rely upon ride fares, which are down coming out of a pandemic, in order to support the maintenance of its infrastructure, in order to support its expansion and general readiness, we are failing our citizens and failing those folks who rely most upon public transit in order to access basic jobs and education in the economy, the social economy of the 21st century. So I am broadly a fan of freeing the tea and moving away from an overt reliance on ride fares, which are, especially now, 2021 going into 2022, incredibly unreliable.
Thank you very much. We don't have any more questions. We appreciate you stopping by. Good luck with the election. It's everybody, just so everybody knows, the primary is December 14th and the general is January 11th. And you should be, if you registered to receive a ballot, you should be getting it shortly. So
thank you all. I appreciate it. I will drop my email address in the chat, my personal, not my campaign. So if anyone has any questions, I always respond very quickly. Feel free to get me there. But thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is 114 Prince Street. Greg McCarthy, I'm going to open your mic and he's going to tell us he wants to add a fourth story and a deck and make a finished garden level space, a legal living space. So let me find your email first. Sorry guys, I'm working on my laptop tonight. I'm not on a big monitor, so it's taking me a little longer. There you go. Do you want to show any slides?
I have the plans.
Okay, hold on. Hold on one second. I have to. There you go.
Should be able to pop those right up.
That work?
Yes, I can see them.
Perfect. So I can give you kind of the overview of the project. So 114 Prince is currently a 3-story building. When we purchased the building, it was 4 units, but we later found out that the garden level unit was not a legal unit. So the building department had it as a legal 3-family. So the apartment in the basement wasn't a legal unit. So part of what we're proposing to do is to make that space legal living space as part of Unit 1. So it would stay as 3 units, but this space would become a duplex with Unit 1 as a bi-level 3-bedroom rather than a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom illegal unit in the basement. The second part of the proposal is currently this is a 3-story building surrounded by mostly 4 and 5-story buildings. So we're actually proposing to do an addition on the 3rd story to create a 4th-story penthouse, which would also be a bi-level unit with Unit 3. So the unit count would stay the same. Unit 3 would become a 2-level unit. Off of that 4th-story addition, we're also proposing a deck off of the living space. I kind of have a shot of the building right here, which shows kind of where that 4th-story addition would be. It's going to be set back about, I can actually show you exactly how far it's set back. Just a second here. No, I think it's up this way. If I can zoom in here. It's set back about 11.5 feet from the street, which kind of hides it from a lot of where you would be able to see it. I guess across the street, there's a park. There's no buildings across the street, but from the street, you'd have to be pretty far up the street to be able to see it. And this deck here goes about 8 feet out and is protected. So you're actually not going to see the deck because of this parapet right here. If you can see the doors on the penthouse, you can kind of see where they're blocked off here. So you won't be able to see any of the deck from the street. So we actually have a couple of violations. One of them is floor area ratio. Currently, we have a floor area ratio of 3.3. We're proposing 3.9, and the allowed floor area ratio is 3. So that's the major violation. The other violation is a roof structure restriction. The access that we have to the deck, since the deck is technically on the roof of the 3rd floor, it's considered a roof deck. And the access to a roof deck can't be by just a regular door. It has to be via a head house or a bubble hatch. So we have a violation for the access to get to the deck. We have just glass doors to walk out to the deck. And then the 3rd violation was actually already remedied. The rear yard setback is 10 feet, which is the rear yard setback for this neighborhood. So back here, I should actually go a little bit further into that explanation. So this penthouse addition is set back on the front and it's set back in the rear 10 feet. So it's not the entire footprint of the rest of the building. It's about a 400 square foot addition on top. And that's basically the whole scope of the project. I mean, it's a full renovation of the whole building, but those are the items that we're seeking relief for.
Okay, are there any abutters here this evening that would like to ask a question? Put your hands up, please. I don't see any hands up. I'm gonna try to see if I can see. Oh, Jen, let me know if you see anybody's hand up. I can't see it through the view, if anybody's physically putting their hand up. Does anyone else have a question? Hold on, Dave, I'm opening your mic. Your mic should be open, Dave. There you
Yeah,
go.
hi, Dave Kubiak. I live over on Cleveland Place. First, I just want to summarize what you said so that we all understand the changes that you're making or not making. So currently there are 3 units. So I assume the basement and first floor are currently combined as 1 unit. The second unit's on the second floor. The third unit is on the third floor. You simply need to legalize the basement space, and you're redesigning it as well. But the basement and the first floor will continue to be a 2-floor unit. You'll continue to have a second floor unit as well as a third floor unit, but you're adding a penthouse to the third floor unit.
Yeah, almost exactly, except for that the building was operating as a 4 unit. So the garden level is actually its own apartment right now. So we're removing that violation and combining the basement and first floor, so it is only 1 unit.
Okay,
But
so it had been used as a 4-unit
exactly.
with the basement unit being an illegal use at the time. And
Yes.
you're turning it into a legal 3-unit building. My concern, as it usually is with impacts to abutting properties. 2 questions. First, are there any windows at the 4th floor, at the penthouse level, your penthouse level? Are there any windows on either side of you?
No.
So those would be the Prince Street properties on either side of you. And I'm also concerned about what's behind you. And I assume that would be, is it North Margin Street behind you?
Yes, North Margin's behind.
So what's behind you at that penthouse level that might be blocked?
So behind us on North Margin is I believe a 3.5-story building. So they'll have a similar 4th story right behind us there.
I didn't follow that. They'll have a similar what?
4th story or a 3/4 of a 4th story. I think they are on that part of North Margin. So they'll have, their building will line up right behind us on the other side of the block.
So if they have windows currently in that North Margin Street building at your penthouse level, those windows may have quite a view over to the park now that'll be obstructed by this penthouse. Is that correct?
Potentially.
And do you know, have you contacted that individual, the owner?
Yeah, we've reached out to all of the abutters.
So so that particular owner, can you tell me something about your coordination with that owner?
We haven't communicated with him or them. We've mailed them several times, but we haven't gotten any communication back from them.
Any idea where that owner's what the owner's address is? Is it at the building or is it in some other state?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I can find out. I have it on the butters list that I have, so I can check it pretty quickly and find out.
That's all I have, Cheryl.
We have a question from Sue. Is the rear setback a deck as well?
No, the rear is just a roof behind the penthouse.
All right. Mary and Tom, I'm going to open your mic. There you go.
Hi, I'm Mary McGee from Snow Hill Street. I have a comment, not a question. And that is whether we as a neighborhood group really want this kind of increase in density in the neighborhood. This building is already above the floor area ratio allowed. It's going from being above at 3.3 to significantly above at 3.9, that it is adding a roof unit. It is filling in a basement that was an illegal use to make it a legal use. And, this isn't just to try to accommodate a family who's in a building or something. This is a person who has multiple projects in the neighborhood, all of which are increasing the size, increasing the density. And I don't think that we should agree with this lightly. We're already a very dense neighborhood. We're already a very crowded neighborhood. We have so many issues with traffic, trash, even just walking down the sidewalk some days. And I really think that we need to think very carefully about why we would approve an increase in density for this. What is the good reason other than letting a builder build a bigger building? And it's just encouraging more people to come in and do that in the neighborhood. In my opinion, it's the last thing that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the site that it is, I don't think it's a very, aggressive size. I think it's a very, I understand your concerns, but I think that the density is pretty in line with everything in the North End, if not less. And, be it over the floor area ratio, absolutely. But I mean, it's a 40-foot building in a 55-foot zoning district. So I mean, there's definitely some relief that's needed because of the size, but I don't think it's too out of line with the neighborhood. I mean, especially with just the surrounding buildings. It's the only one on the street that's 3 stories. So I mean, it is the lowest density in the neighborhood because most of these are taking up the lot. But I completely understand that concern. The other side of it is that these are for family. I mean, these are 3-bedroom, 2-bath units that are spacious. These are going to be condominiums for sale. And I mean, I know firsthand that there's very, very hard to find any spaces that are big enough for families. And, we're not jamming 5 bedrooms into, 1,500 square feet. We have big, spacious 3-bed, 2-baths that are meant to be large enough for families to live in, which I think is kind of
What's the square
lacking.
footage? What's the square footage on the units?
The top floor unit is about 1,400 and the first floor unit is about 1,500.
Okay, and they all have 3 bedrooms?
Yeah, except for the second floor, which is about, I think, 850 square feet, and that has 2 bedrooms.
Okay, and was there an abutters meeting, and were there any objections raised by the abutters at the meeting?
Yes, we had a meeting. No objections at the meeting.
All right, does somebody want to make a motion? Because we need to have a vote. Mary, your mic's open. You want to make the motion?
Okay, I move that we vote to either approve or reject the current proposal.
I'll second, and if people can email me, I put my email address in the chat, cdelgreco@comcast.net. I will tally up the votes. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a nice holiday. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I need you to take that down.
That's fair.
Thank you very much. Our next guest is our city councilor, Lydia Edwards, who is running for the state Senate seat that is being vacated by Joe Boncory, that has been vacated by Joe Boncory. Lydia, councilor, I am going to open up your mic right now and welcome you to the November meeting of NEWRA.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Well, I want to apologize for the blurred vision. I dropped my camera and I'm in between events, so I apologize. I think most of you know what I look like though. And so I'm happy to just a quick orientation. Did you want me to just do some quick opening remarks and then open
Yes,
up for
please. Yeah,
questions?
just tell us a little bit about your platform and then we'll take a few questions.
Absolutely. Well, many of you know me as your city councilor, your public servant, and know some of the things I'm very passionate about, including housing, good planning, making sure our waterfront is free and accessible for all of us and a true sustainable future. And so that's in part why I'm running. A lot of the things that we need in our communities is deeply connected to other communities and must take a regional approach. And we need laws at the State House and someone who understands that from the bottom up, how we have to implement legislation that really allows for cities to grow, really allows and empowers for individuals to be at the table, and truly gives, I think, for the first time, Boston the autonomy that it has earned. Personally, I have loved being a public servant and meeting you where you are. I remember many of the times organizing and talking with you specifically right after the bomb cyclone. I remember that was my first test, if you will. It was 2018, and sitting down with a lot of you to really discuss what just happened, that your cars were underwater, and how we as a city should have been able to prepare for this and did not. You know, that is what I think more than anything, I see where the city municipal laws end, so much of what the state's going to have to do is going to pick up, especially when it comes to our climate future. I am already I already have a record of writing legislation, the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights being the first piece of legislation I wrote, move on to the eviction ceiling bill. I happen to also help write our linkage bill for the city of Boston, giving us the autonomy that we need. And pending right now in the State House are other bills that I'm looking at that I've drafted, again, eviction ceiling, but also we have the pending up at the State House is the zoning reform, the ZBA reform, to finally put an urban planner and environmentalist on our zoning board of appeals. So much of everything that we do in our zoning is controlled by the state law because Boston is treated as an exception to the rule. For some reason, our autonomy isn't as valued as much as other cities. And I want to be the senator that understands that intimately, that's gotten the calls about bad development, that's gotten the calls about bad planning, so that when we go to call for true autonomy and power for our communities, you know I'll listen, and you know I'll listen with the urgency that you deserve. Finally, the top issue I think that is going to be pending on all of our minds is, for the first time, we don't have the real excuse of lack of funds. Right now, it's a matter of prioritization. We do have ARPA funds, $5 billion-ish at the State House, and then we're going to get another set of billions of dollars for our infrastructure. I think more than anything right now, we need a senator who understands literally down to the potholes of what happens when bad infrastructure is allowed to continue on for generations. So I want to be there for you, fighting for you. I will not forget the North End, especially in this community and its unique gem of a community that we have and the natural resources that it's surrounded by, and that those resources should be free, sustainable for generations to come. And I hope you'll consider voting for me on December 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, who has a question for Lydia? Come on. Well, all right, hold on. Dave Kubiak. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have two questions, Lydia. The first is, if you are elected state senator, are we who are in the Boston part of that district going to have to compete with Cambridge and Chelsea and Revere and Winthrop for your attention? And the second question is the same question that I asked Mr. D'Ambrosio, and that is, what are the important initiatives proposed by Mayor Wu that require legislative action, and do you support them?
Excellent question. You know, I think I'm uniquely qualified for this position because I already deal with three distinct neighborhoods. No, they are not three distinct cities, but they are three distinct neighborhoods with different needs at different times, and sometimes they have conflicted with each other. And what I did when they conflicted was bring the communities together. And I simply said we have more in common than not. and that the ultimate goal should be for us to figure out how we can help each other out, how we can be each other's advocates, instead of feeling that what I'm advocating for needs all the attention at this moment. And if the senator looks to any place else, that somehow that's going to take away from the urgency and fire and the needs today. If anything, I'm very proud of being able to be a bridge builder. As many of you have seen, my former opponent, Steve Passacantilli, endorsed me for this seat. And that is because we built bridges. I don't ever assume someone disagreeing with me at one point, at one time, is forever on the other side. I think that it takes a constant amount of work and collaboration. And I know that that's one thing we certainly miss and need more of in politics. So I think if anything, having more communities at the table, we're going to find out how much more we have in common, including our waterfront, including our housing crisis. I just spoke in Revere today to a group of seniors, and the first thing they talked about was overdevelopment. And I said, hey, I know some people who have a little expertise in that. So I think we can connect actually over our common issues. And as for the second issue with regards to, second question, excuse me, with regards to Mayor Wu's initiative, the first initiative and the reason why I endorsed her and was supportive of her is really restructuring and somewhat abolishing the BPDA. That requires state action. That's the first thing. I believe in city planning. I know Mayor Wu does as well, but the institution that has been in charge of it has been predominantly led by how we develop and derive profit. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're developing and building neighborhoods. So that's the first state action that we could look at together. The second one is looking at, honestly, funding and prioritizing a free public transportation system. And I don't just mean the T. I actually hope she's looking at the ferry system, an Inner Harbor ferry that is free or at least very much accessible to majority of the ridership. It's not enough that private ferries are being offered for $5 each way. That is not actually accessible by many people. I also can look to the ZBA reform and how we choose to zone and develop. Again, because we are a unique city, we need state action. Finally, there are certain things when it comes to the prioritization of civil rights and liberties that I know Mayor Wu, at the fundamental of her heart, she truly believes in, such as making sure that immigrants are seen and valued in this community and in our city, regardless of their status. Also, the Crown Act, it has to do with preventing natural hair discrimination. I know that fundamentally, as my friend, as my former colleague, she truly believes that not only do Black Lives Matter, but that our state and our state laws and our city laws need to reflect that as well.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? What do you think the first thing you would do if you were elected? What's the first area you would tackle, or the first law you would want to pass, or first legislation you'd want to write?
Well, there's two parts to approach that. There's already things that are written that are pending at the State House, the eviction ceiling law, the ZBA. Those are all things that are already pending. But honestly, as a brand new senator, the first thing I will need to do is the same thing that I did when I became a brand new city councilor. We're going to have to sit down. I have to get to work at listening. Fundamentally, as I said, there is money on the table. How it is prioritized is the real question. And it cannot just be me by myself with 4 different cities and assuming anything. I believe I'm talking to the experts in the room. I believe I'm talking to the real live experts who will be impacted by the good and bad decision making that I have. My bosses, now and my future bosses, hopefully, are all of you. So what I'd hope to do is get immediate set of listening sessions, if not transition sessions, to talk with you. The money is on the table, and it's not as though I have some sort of grace period. It's get to work right away. So I'm going to ask actually that not only I get to work, but you get to work with me. And so many of you picked up the phone many times that I had questions before, and I'm going to ask that you do that again.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have a question? I do not think so. Then we are going to let you go off to your next event.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank
good night.
you very much for coming.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. All right. So again, December 14th, January 11th, get out and vote. So our next guest is from Gazette. it's the Faneuil Hall Marketplace Center. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with that. Those are the buildings that are abut the Greenway. It's where Banana Republic is and Clark's, the shoe store. And we have with us Allison Lees, who's their Chief Investment Officer. They would like to expand the building, do some renovations, and go up 7 stories or up to 7 stories. Anyway, Allison can explain all of that to us. I'm going to open your mic right now, Allison. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I
Also,
appreciate
just
the
so
time.
everybody knows, this is not something, this isn't our district. They're coming here to let us know about what's going on. This is not something we would be voting on. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Cheryl. If it's okay with you, I'm going to do a screen share. We have
Yes, please.
some images to share.
Yep.
Can everybody see that? Okay, great. I apologize. It's up on the screen on the left. So, well, again, thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate the time. As Cheryl mentioned, this is an informational project update. Obviously, we are your neighbors, even though we're not technically in your neighborhood. But our company owns the retail condominium here. It's a 3-story building on one side and portions, sort of 2-story portions of the building on the other side. We do not own the office tower or the garage underneath. We bought the building in 2019. We had plans to, sort of refurbish some of the ground floor retail and, make a few cosmetic renovations. But COVID really changed that. Tourism completely changed in the middle of COVID, and we lost some of our tenants due to bankruptcies and restructurings and everything else COVID related. So it created a, sort of distinct opportunity in time to really look at the project and say, what could this be? What should it be? And how could we make it better? So I have a couple slides here. I won't bore you too much. I know we're on a relatively short timeline here with the location, but we recognize the importance of the location. We're a relatively small project. It's 62,000 square feet as it existed, but with the neighborhood, with the Greenway, with Quincy Market, with the park and the waterfront and the North End, we really do recognize the importance of this sort of gateway location. And as we started thinking about the project more, we looked back at a lot of the historical images. What was it originally? It was the waterfront before it was filled in, and then it became an 8-story building that was primarily poultry and egg processing facility. And then most of what I remember is when it was a parking lot with the elevated highway behind it. So this building was built in 1983. It was built as the office. The office tower and the retail together, with the idea that you were turning traffic away, pedestrian traffic from Faneuil Hall, from crossing through and seeing the elevated highway. We just have a couple of sort of site context pictures just so everybody knows what it is, and then I'll show you what we're proposing. What we're proposing is to completely remake the ground floor retail, open it up to the Greenway, follow the path that many projects before have done in opening themselves to the Greenway, and then convert the second floor retail into an office building above. This is traditional office. It's not a lab that we're proposing here, and we would essentially try to make it much more aesthetically pleasing than what's there today. A big component for us is getting rid of that large steel canopy and creating this portal gateway connecting, Quincy Market and the Faneuil Hall side to the waterfront and the Greenway, and making it a place that people actually want to sort of pass through instead of a place that people were intended to turn around. A couple more rendering images of the site, and then the portal from the Quincy Market side of the project. The fun part for us, or for me, I should say, and coming up with this portal was coming up with sort of ideas for public art and ways that we could program it that would make it an interesting destination for our residents, our tourists, our businesses alike. So whether it's creating an umbrella alley or adding a sculptural element that attracts people to come take their Instagrammable photos, that's sort of how we're thinking about this passageway. and in context of other portals in the city of Boston. So the existing clearance here is about 10 feet, and what we're proposing is opening it up to about 42 feet tall. For reference, Rose Wharf at this line here is about 36 feet tall, and the top, I believe, is 70 feet. So it would be, you know, akin to sort of a smaller Rose Wharf type portal. And then the North Station opening, which is obviously a much different treatment because it's really entry into TD Garden and North Station, is 36 feet tall. So we're talking about, you know, pretty sort of sizable opening and that connection, the walkway to the sea. We also, just sort of in context of other projects, you know, that have opened up on the Greenway, we have the Boulevard condos, obviously a little bit further south. We have the State Street lofts, which I think did a wonderful job of integrating, you know, old and new materials. Obviously the Haymarket Hotel at the end, you know, where all the vendors used to be, and the Dock Square Garage, which is an approved project, but, you know, hasn't been built yet. So we're just sort of continuing on as best we can along that Greenway. I was asked, Cheryl, by you and one of the other members of your association to share our shadow studies. So wanted to do that to the extent we have time. Is that okay with you, or would you like me to open up to questions?
That's great. That's great. We have time. Well
Okay,
said.
great. So sharing our shadow studies here, we have a spring, you know, sort of the first two images are the spring. Most of the morning shadows in the spring are really along rooftops. It's a little hard to see. I apologize. I don't know how to zoom in when I'm in presentation mode on PowerPoint, but the only pedestrian new shadows are sort of this small area here and this small sidewalk area in front of Dock Square Garage. Lunchtime in the spring, it's the entry to Commercial Street, which is the loading, essentially the loading street between Quincy Market and Marketplace. It's pedestrian primarily after 11 a.m., but in the morning hours, it's mostly loading. The afternoon in the spring, the shadows do stretch to the sort of about a third of the Armenian Heritage Park and a corner of the Greenway. And then by 6 p.m. it's dark, so there's no 6 p.m. shadows. In the summer months, in the morning again, most of the shadows are along roofs except for a small portion of Commercial Street. The shadows that are created in the sort of center circle here are also sort of on our property, but new because that's a little bit of a civic space. By noon, they're very short shadows, so it's really just sidewalk. 3 p.m. they stretch really just across the road. They get to the very, very edge of the Armenian Heritage Park and the Greenway. And then the evening shadow stretches across the Harbor Islands Pavilion on that 6 p.m. So it sort of makes a turn and gets longer. Our autumn shadows, again, similar. We don't have much net new shadow between Quincy Market and the North Market. The only real new shadow that's not rooftop here is the sidewalk in front of, which is the entrance to Dock Square currently. Lunchtime shadows are really just surface road here, primarily along the street, and then the sidewalks along our property. The 3 o'clock shadow in spring does stretch across the carousel and portions of the Armenian Heritage Park. And then in the evening, we reach the waterfront and about, you know, a quarter of Christopher Columbus Park as the shadow gets longer and longer and the whole city goes. It gets pretty dark there in spring, or rather in fall at night. And then winter shadows, there's no net new shadows in the morning and winter. The lunchtime shadow is over the exit from I-93 southbound. So it's really just this portion here. And the evening shadow, we have small portions of the Greenway and then extending into a small portion, which is mostly, this is like the walking path along the edge of Christopher Columbus Park over here. So that is the project in a nutshell. I put my contact information up and I'm happy to switch back to any slides or answer any questions.
Yeah, people may have some questions, and while people are, let me see, I'm just trying to get the chat open.
I can
Jennifer,
stop.
I'm opening your mic, yeah.
Hi.
Jennifer,
Hi. I have, I think, two questions. First is, what neighborhood organizations or civic organizations do have jurisdiction here, like to provide comment, have conversations with you about the size of the project, et cetera? And then my second question or comment, I don't know, does it need to be so tall? Because I know, like, we had the same objection to Dock Square, the project, because of the same reason, that a lot of the North End, and when you're walking along the Greenway, has a great view of the Customs House. And I know obviously that's an old building. It's not always going to be fully visible to everybody because things will get built, but I feel like that view is really special. And with the North End being such a tourist destination and where a lot of people live, and, you know, like my kids like looking at it when we're outside, I feel like the height of this and the massing is going to really impede that view. So anyways, maybe like cut out a big V so we can still see the Customs House or something. I'm being silly, but
no, you're not at
it's
all.
unfortunate that it kind of like takes that view away.
Well, I'll show you. I don't know if I have a great rendering of it. So
one of the renderings was like kind of a deadly.
Yeah, it was this one.
That one, yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, so the building's really irregular shaped, and I don't have the rendering that I'm looking for, but the only place that it's because it's like triangular. Actually, you know, it may be from the roof. That's
really hard to figure out how it's going to look from the Greenway. And
yeah, so when you're from the North End, you will actually still be able to see the Customs House, because your view here is down Commercial Street and it's not really blocked. From the Armenian Heritage Park, like if you're standing over here, you're going to see maybe the tippy top, but that's because you're very close to, sort of very close to the building, and the angle up isn't great. I'm happy to, we have better renderings which sort of show the size and angle of the building, which I'm happy to send to you afterward. I totally hear you on the point. The challenge that we have is that it's a 62,000 square foot project, and we don't own the garage below. And the way that we have to build the structure is essentially by building like a table on top, and to build that big table on top of the 3 stories that we already have, and then put, 1 or 2 stories more, like we just, it would never be feasible. I know that's not an answer anybody ever likes to hear, but it's the honest answer, that it just wouldn't be feasible to do a much shorter or smaller project. It's also a really small floor plate. So we have, sort of 10,000 square feet on each floor, which is why it looks big in rendering, but it's not a very large project, in part because of this sort of irregular shape. So we sacrificed, we're obviously, we want to keep the compass rose. We want to keep a lot of that civic open space. We want to keep that passageway to the sea. And part of that was, how else could we be able to accommodate, making the project feasible.
How high is the building going to be? How high is the building now, and how high is it going to be?
It is about 45 feet currently, and what we're proposing is 125 feet, which is the same height as the Dock Square garage.
And you're going from 3 stories to 7?
No, 3 stories with 7 stories on top, so it would be a 10-story building.
Wow. I didn't realize that. And how many?
Cheryl, going back to the civic organizations, like what organizations, this isn't technically part of the North End, so we're not sitting here voting and like writing a letter.
Yep.
Although I imagine we could write a letter if we wanted to. What organizations are you engaging with that actually do have input with the city?
So we're engaging with the Wharf District Council. So we're on the edge of their district council. Obviously, we're engaging with the Greenway, both the bid and the Conservancy. We've talked to the Armenian Heritage Park. We've talked to, Representative Michaelwitz. We've talked to Councillor Flynn, who is our, we're not in Lydia Edwards' district, but we're in Ed Flynn's district. So we've talked to him, and your input is really important, despite the fact that you're not voting members. I mean, we want to do this project in conjunction with the community and the neighborhood, not, as something that nobody wants. My personal opinion is we have a really ugly building here, and I'd love to, find ways to bring tenants back, to bring tourists back, to make it something that people want to go to. And that's really our goal here. We're trying to make something that is non-historic and 1980s era a little bit better, and really, respect the Greenway and respect the rest of the neighborhood. So.
I have one more follow-up question, Cheryl, then I'm
Sure.
going to mute myself again.
Yeah, go ahead.
How is your company feeling about office space, given the change in the way that people work during the pandemic, and likely going forward, having a lot more hybrid and non-office situations?
Yeah, I mean, most of what we do is retail. We really bought this as a retail project, but we invest in, in the urban environment where there's a lot of pedestrian foot traffic. Office in general, it's a really sort of difficult thing to say, oh, I feel really strongly about office. What I do feel strongly about is providing quality office that, has a lot of things that tenants are looking for, like good airflow, access to the outdoors. Boston as a city has a lot of older product, and to stay competitive with a lot of the other cities and continue to attract people and have them want to go to work, I think we have to be investing in office space to make it a place people want to be. So office in general is not something that, I'm sort of free to speak on, but I do think that, new construction with a focus on environmental sustainability and, LEED design is something that will continue to be attractive to users.
We have a bunch of questions. Dave, your mic is open, and then I'm going to take Matthew Murphy and then Mary Miggy.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Dave Kubiak, and I'm a 36-year resident of the North End. Great segue, Jen, when you said, well, maybe we should be writing a letter. Thanks for saying that. Having seen this project now, these few graphics, I think it's very important for NEWRA and for the North End as a whole to pay close attention to this project. Among my concerns are the shadows, even shadows within paved areas of Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market, I think are really important. The entire Quincy Market, Faneuil Hall area is kind of an open public space. And I would not want to put any impacts on the public using that space and enjoying that space. I am very concerned about shadow on the Greenway. I want to make sure that there are no older agreements going back sometimes even 30 years regarding development along the Central Artery Corridor and how high those buildings should be, and maybe shadow limitations and so forth. There are agreements going way, way back. And I know the Mass Historical Commission is very knowledgeable about those old agreements. You mentioned improving the look of the building. Maybe on my laptop screen, it really looks horrible what you want to build to me. But I'm open to taking a closer look at that. I am concerned about uses within the building. I'm not sure whether this building is within the BRA's market district, within which they wanted to promote market uses. So that's another thing to pay attention to. And at first glance, the passageway, while you say you're enlarging it, it seems to be very much encumbered by the portions of the building over it and immediately adjacent to it, very encumbered, and doesn't seem to be welcoming to me, not even as welcoming as the grand passageway that's there now. And so I think we should pay attention to this. I assume we'll be paying attention to this through the the Article 80 process, you mentioned that this is a small project, but you also mentioned, I thought that it was something like, it was over 60,000 square feet.
It is subject to large project review.
It is large project
Yes.
review.
Based on our neighborhood alone.
And
Yep.
so far, you've submitted only a letter of intent.
Yep.
I assume the next stage will be the creation of an impact advisory group. Maybe the North End should have a representative. Maybe NEWRA should consider having a representative, but not me, on the impact advisory group. And the next submission that you'll make, which will be substantial, will be a project notification form.
That's
And
correct.
NEWRA should definitely take a look at that project notification form. Do you have a schedule for the Article 80 process, or at least the beginning of it?
Yes, we'll be submitting our PNF sometime hopefully in the next week before Thanksgiving. And we're happy to provide whomever you would like with a copy of that.
Get it to me and I'll get it to everybody.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, those public comment periods are typically, I think, 30 days. And 30 days over the holidays is not helpful.
Yeah, I would assume it's not going to count the holiday days don't
No.
count towards the
Well,
30.
I know, but I would hope that the public comment period,
Oh,
if
yeah.
it starts soon, I would hope that it would not end until well after the first of the year. There's too much going on between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, I just to follow up on a quick question you just said, Dave. It's 62,000 square feet now. How many square feet will it be?
It will be, so it's about 65,000 square feet currently, and we'll add another 135,000 square feet. So it'll be about
okay, that's the
200,000
number.
square feet.
Yeah, that's the number I'm more interested
sorry,
in.
you
So
said-
it is a very large project, and
I'm going to
clearly,
go back again. What are the numbers again? Because we were all talking. It's currently 63,000
It's currently 65,000 square feet. Yep.
and it's going to what?
And 200,000. So it's an addition of 135,000 square feet.
which is well over the threshold for large project review.
Yeah. Matthew, your mic is open.
Good evening, and thank you for the presentation. I want to just echo one thing that's already been mentioned, which is I'm very concerned about the the size and height. I work in the tourism industry, and so I'm very very cognizant of how that portal is a very, very important gateway to the waterfront. The current design, this is just my opinion, but the current design, really, the portal looks foreboding to me. It does, even though it's maybe larger in size, it does not convey a sense of opening and welcoming out to the greenway and the water the view to the sea. So I just want to express that concern. My other question is about what the conversations have been with Faneuil Hall Marketplace. What are have they endorsed the project, stated any concerns about the project and how it impacts on their property? I know these two properties do work very much sort of in conjunction with each other, even though they're owned and operated separately, but can you speak to that a little bit?
We have not presented the project formally to them. We have only shared in concept to them, so I can't give a comment on what they think or don't think at this point. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, I just opened your mic.
It's actually Tom Schiavone.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Just 3 observations. The first one, if the Dock Square garage in your graphics, it remains to look like a garage, and it doesn't really enable a person studying the impact of your development with that intended development. As you said, it's going to go up to the same stories. It really doesn't give, in a graphic way, a person a real idea of the density and massing occurring there. So what I'm saying is it looks just, if you go to a community meeting and it looks like there's just the same old, we actually, many of us had grave concerns about losing the view. And when I talk about view, I'm not just talking about the aesthetics. I'm talking about the visual continuity with our history of the city and our culture. And I'm even concerned, in addition to the shadows on the greenway, I'd be curious at the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park, when you're standing over along the water and looking back, you might not see the top of the cupola or some of the sense of continuity with the Quincy Market, the side buildings, and indeed even Faneuil Hall. So that I think is an important thing. And I think for North Enders, I would be curious as to whether the Armenian Memorial, have they had any, have you had, what kind of feedback? And the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park, I really think that this does impact the North End, and perhaps there are other constituencies as well, but have you spoken to any of them?
Yes, so we've spoken to the Armenian Heritage Park. We've shared the project with them very early on, because obviously we are next door neighbors, not just neighboring neighbors. We have made Christopher Columbus Park aware of the project. They haven't asked to see anything at this point because we're so early on. I imagine when this moves a little bit more forward, that we'll be having discussions with them. But Tom, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add.
No. Let me open his mic. Hold on, Tom. 1 second. There you go. Okay, you should be open.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McShane, and Allison's correct. We started to look at, because the normal process of looking at what is the civic association that you would normally go to, we didn't think really applied here, because we felt that although we really belong in the Wharf District, that the impacts were really being felt more on the Greenway and on the North End. That's why we're here tonight. The concentric circles that we looked at were, number one, making sure that we talk to the people in the bid for the downtown Boston as it applied to the Faneuil Hall Marketplace. Number two, the Armenian Heritage Foundation, because we think that they're the ones who are most impacted of anyone. We did reach out to Boston Harbor Now to make sure they were aware. And as Allison mentioned, the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park. Those are the people that we started with. And then we figured the people that really are going to matter in our minds most are going to be the North End, because although we're not over in the North End, we think that you're the ones who are going to see it every day. So that's why we came to you, and we've gone to NEWRA to make sure that you are aware. We're trying to do all of this before we file any project notification form, so that people are aware of it. And we're open to anybody else that you think we should be reaching out to, so that people aren't surprised. What we didn't want to do is to file a PNF and have people say, what the heck is that all about? So that's why we're here.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming in and informing us about this project. I think a lot of us weren't aware of the scope. That's really helpful. Thank you both very much. And we will be in touch. I think we're going to want more information, and I think we're probably going to want to get involved.
Great.
Is there anybody else who wants to ask a question? I think I grabbed everybody. Let me just check the chat really quick, because there was a lot of stuff. Nope, just somebody, Sue, talking about the shadow concerns, but that's great. Nope. This is how you get it started. This is great.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your
Thanks,
time.
everyone.
Thanks. Okay, so thank you very much for your patience. We have Fiore Kalila, who is here about the addition to Fiore's restaurant, and Ryan, although Ryan, I'm not sure Ryan Gazda is here, because I know Bill Ferrulo is here. I don't see Ryan. So Bill, I'm going to open your mic. Bill Ferrulo, you are
Good
open.
evening. I'm a poor replacement for Ryan, but I will.
Is there anybody else on your team whose mic I should open?
Would you open Anthony Pisani's?
Hang on one second. It's okay, I got it. Yeah. Yep. I just asked to open your mic, Anthony. There
Okay,
you go.
thank you.
You're open. Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Do you you should be able to share if you want to show plans.
I do, and let's start with the rendering, and thank you. I am here on behalf representing Fury Colella and his wife Melinda, who are on this call. Fury's been the owner of the restaurant Fury's and the property at 250 Hanover Street for 20 years. He also had been the owner of the Italian Cantina down the street for 40 years before selling it 2 years ago. Fury is contemplating this proposal, which is to add 3 floors of residential to a 2-story restaurant that operates today. And what you are seeing here is principally the existing restaurant is this area.
We're not seeing it yet.
Oh, you're not seeing that. Hold on.
Hold on. No, hold on. I'm sorry. I had to open it up. It's my fault. You should be able to do it now.
Is that up? I'll try it.
No, not up yet.
All right, give me 1 second.
Take your time. There you go.
Okay.
It's starting to. There you go. You got it.
So to go back, this is the site, 250 Hanover Street. Bank of America is here to the right. The newly constructed condos next door are this building right here. And to the left of that is Spaniola Restaurant and their property above it. The building currently occupies 2 levels, these lower 2 levels for the existing restaurant. The proposal is for the upper 3 floors, which will have 9 units, 3 units per floor. The basics first are that the building will be 55 feet at a roof deck that I'll show you in a second, but the roof height itself is 54 feet 9 inches. And if I go to this, and why I'm showing you this now is this is the proposed roof area. There's a small deck area here, which accommodates. This is the staircase that leads to the roof, and this is the head house for the elevator and the service area on the roof. What you see here and here, cutouts in the building that are open down to the 2nd floor of the restaurant. You'll see them better when I show you the individual floor plans, but from the roof, what you would be doing is you'd be able to look down and see a glass area above the 2nd floor on 2 areas of the restaurant. And that does a couple of things. It allows more light into the building and into the 2nd floor of the restaurant. It also provides areas where there are, in this instance, some little decks for outdoor open space for the units here. And what you can't see is in the back, there's also some small decking over the back of the building. With that, I'll see if I can bring up our plans. And Cheryl, can you tell me if that's showing for you?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Bill, the 2nd floor is showing, yes.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure the plans are up before I.
Yeah, they're up.
Right.
Okay. All right. So once again, that's our existing condition. So Fury's restaurant is occupied here. This area is that outdoor patio that you see from the street. I'll point out now, and then I'll point out later, there is actually a curb cut right here because this has been a driveway and a service area when it's not used as an outdoor patio. And this is the first floor of the proposed restaurant. So the similarity is this area that you see, and this area also pretty much are existing, meaning this is that current entryway that you come into the restaurant. This is that front room. Fury's current condition is he does have an elevator today that will be an extension of that. This is the lounge area, etc. And this area on the side is the current outdoor patio that you see from the street. And this would be the second floor. And once again, most of the second floor exists today in somewhat of a different pattern, meaning the front dining room, dining rooms here and here, currently exist. In the rear of this is an open roof deck today that will be enclosed. And this rectangle here is the area that has the glass roof on it that is open to the roof that I showed you earlier. And on the second floor, the one difference is this area above the downstairs outdoor patio will now be interior of the restaurant. And once again, this is a glass rooftop on this as well that opens to the rest of the building. The restaurant increases slightly, but we don't have a fixed capacity. Mr. Pisani, the architect, just put in, what I would say maximum seating just to fill it in, but this will change because of structured issues, meaning where beams are or walls are, etc. So the number will eventually go down. We expect that the number will be roughly as it is today, which is somewhere around 390. Since the floor plate is roughly the same except for this area, we don't think it's going to increase much because we lose space for enlarged elevator and other structural items that are in the building, like the staircases. The residential floors 3, 4, and 5 is shown here. The front units are 2-bedroom and then a study, which could be used as a 3-bedroom unit. It's 1,470 square feet. The middle unit, and you'll see it has these decks assigned to this unit, and this deck's assigned to the middle unit, which is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 855 square foot unit. And then the rear unit is also a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit that has a small deck in the rear. And I'll talk about the rear of the building when we have a discussion about the violations. That principally is the layout, both existing and what is proposed. And the proposal results in some violations that I will review with you now. And the first one of which is the building total square footage when this project is completed is 18,912 square feet. Because it's above 15,000, there's a requirement for what's called off-street loading. And although we have the violation for it, as I pointed out, the difference here at Fury's is one is he has an existing curb cut there, and directly to the right of it, which is in front of Fury's and Bank of America, is one of the common shared loading spaces for Hanover Street. So the city imposed shared delivery spaces. So it happens to be right in front of this restaurant. In addition to the fact that Fury owns and pays for the curb cut that's in front of that area that's currently on the patio. The second violation is off-street parking. We have no off-street parking. We would need 9 spaces for 9 units. However, this is would be considered by the city a transit-oriented location. And as some of you may be aware, with acting Mayor Janey, some new regulations have been proposed and are being placed in so as the parking requirements are requested to be lower, meaning that in an area like this, where we are approximately 150 to 200 yards from MBTA green and orange line, and we're approximately 500 yards from the commuter rail at Knott Station, it would be classified as a transit-oriented location as far as parking. So we are not planning on a garage in the building. The next is floor area ratio, which, as you heard from an earlier proposal, is 3.0 in the neighborhood, and the build out on this building would bring it to 3.78. And it is not out of keeping. As a matter of fact, the existing building is sort of architecturally referred to as a gap 2 location on that block of Hanover Street, meaning all of the buildings on that block, when you look at it, are either this height slightly above or slightly below the 55 feet in that block. And this is the only building that's a 2-story building there. All of those buildings clearly are in excess of the 3.0 FAR, as well as the vast majority of buildings in the North End in general. And our other violation is that rear yard violation, but that's an existing violation, meaning the existing structure of the building only has a 4-foot, 4.5 to 5 foot yard in the back. And the new portion that you see in this drawing is back to 12 feet as required, but the lower portion, which is the existing building back here, is within the so-called setback. So that already exists, and you still get a violation on the rear yard. And I think when it was stated that the neighborhood has a 10-foot rear yard setback, I think that's an error. It's a 12-foot setback in the north end in the areas that I'm familiar. And the last is the roof structure restriction. And you not only get that for the access to the roof, as was mentioned in the earlier proposal, because as I showed you, there is a head house on the roof, but you get it for any time you change the configuration of the existing roof. So our existing roof is changed by not being on the 2nd floor, but now being on the 5th floor. So those are the violations, but as stated, I think in keeping with the zoning for Hanover Street in this area, I think they are well within reason for a proposal for this building. And I would mention, and I'll put them up, is I can do this once more. We have 15 abutting property owners, including the owners of the properties to the left, to the right, the rear, and across the street, who have signed letters of support. And we have 53 letters of support from local residents that we will provide you and show you, if I can get that up on the screen.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Okay, so these, I won't go that quickly, but Panther is the owner of the new condominiums that next door in Hanover and behind us on Parmenter, where the old North End Union used to be. And then from there, Ed Capone is the owner of the Bank of America building to our right. And then you have Adriana Di Stefano and the Picariellos own the 3 buildings directly across from this, which are their Modern Pastry and Cafe Paradiso, as well as I said, a number of other owners on the block.
I'm looking for some
And
hands.
with, yeah, with that, Mr. Pisani is also here for any architectural questions.
Okay. Mary and Tom, I opened your mic. I'm not sure. Who is the question?
It's Tom Schiavone. Thank you. This is more a comment about the phenomenon in general. I went to a zoning, the ZLC meeting, the most recent one, and several of the proposals, in addition to this, there was one other one for the conversion and of Upper Salem Street into 9 units. It's a commercial on the first floor, and they want to turn the whole building into 9. I wanted us to be aware that in 2000, the inclusionary development policy that the city created, it has to do with developments that include anything need for zoning relief. And if they're going to be 10 units or more, it basically puts into effect either that 13% of the existing units, or it would be at least 1 in this one, if this was a 10 unit development, would have to be for affordable housing, and according to a city formula, or the creation of the same amount of units or the unit at a location near the building, or contributing to the inclusionary development fund so that the city can look for and build affordable housing in either this neighborhood or others. And if we go back for the past 4, 5, 6 years, we will find that all of the projects that come before us often stop at 9. 9 is the lucky number, but it's irresistible not to ask the question as to why not just this, but the others can't have that 10th unit. But the issue is we are conferring a benefit by giving up, in a sense, some of the light or the scale of the street, which includes the human scale. So I just wanted the members just to be aware, when you hear of 9 units, you will never hear of a 10 unit, not likely in the near future. And if we go back in time, if you added up all these 9 unit developments, you would see how many units we lost, or in lieu of payments. I think the payments, maybe Attorney Ferrulo knows better than I, but I think it's about 200,000+ at this point, which we know wouldn't even buy a market a studio apartment. So this isn't by way of criticism. I just wanted us to become aware that this phenomenon there, 9 is not a lucky number if we're thinking about having our neighbors stay in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Sue. Windows on the middle 855 square foot unit. I think she means, are there windows?
Yes, there are windows. If you can go back to the 2nd floor plan, or 3rd floor plan, actually. There are windows. Can you, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Go back to the, fine, this is it. One of the reasons that we created the well was because it allows for all of the rooms, to the bedrooms in particular, to have light. They get their light from that large well. Additionally,
is that a skylight?
Yes, the skylight is at the 2nd floor that covers the 2nd floor dining. Okay, it is open from the 2nd floor all the way to the sky.
And that counts as a window?
No, the windows, well, here and here, right?
Yeah, the windows, these are windows. So if you open your window, you actually get fresh air. It's open.
These are windows here. These are windows here. This unit has access to a deck and windows, sliding doors, glass sliding doors on the deck. Our wells correspond to where there are wells on the adjacent building, because we didn't want to shut them off at all. And it allows them to maintain their window area, us to maintain our window area. So there's windows at the second 2-bedroom unit and windows on the back deck side here of the larger unit. Additionally, the rear unit is basically can be all windows. That rear lot line, rear wall sets back 12 feet, and it also has a deck.
So
all units have decks, all units have windows.
Go ahead, Sue.
Cheryl, so what you're saying is the windows for the bedrooms on that middle unit look into a air well. They don't look
into a well. That's right.
Yes.
Right.
So
and they are 1 story above the restaurant.
Okay.
And so that goes to the sky.
Look out into a yard or on the street or even an adjacent building. It's into an air well.
But that's a very large well.
Okay. And how about the living room of that unit? Now, does that living room have windows?
The living room has the window and the deck. It has the glass doors, 8-foot sliding glass doors onto the deck.
Again, into kind of an air well because it's surrounded by buildings.
Yes.
It is in a well. That's correct.
Yes, I see. So that's, wow.
Is that to code?
Oh, absolutely. There's a very nice example of this on 11 Dorchester Street in South Boston.
I'm almost having visions of a dorm being built in Santa Barbara right now.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Very different.
All right. Could I ask just one other question? So in the back unit, their deck, does that look onto the North End Union building?
Yes, it looks onto the wall.
Oh, okay. So there are no windows on that part of the North End Union?
No. That's a solid wall.
I see. So there's a solid.
No, we are very careful not to have any of our windows align with any of the neighbors' windows at all.
Okay, and so all of these decks look onto a wall, but do they get any sunlight?
Yes, if we could go to the 3-dimensional drawing.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
Which one, Anthony?
The 3D roof, the 3D drawing that shows the roof.
Okay.
Yeah, this one, right. No, well, this is it in plan, but actually go to the previous drawing, Bill. This one, right. Okay, so there you can see the scale of the wells.
Oh, okay, yes.
And so they go floor sky, you get plenty of light, you get sunlight down in there. So, yeah.
Okay.
And they're operable. And the ones that are on the decks, again, those are large 8-foot sliders, glass sliders.
I see. Yeah, just one other question. So the building that's just to the left, that is, yes, exactly. Is that a condo building?
No, rental apartments.
Oh, I see. Okay. And where are their windows? Only on the front and the back?
Well, by an agreement with Fury, you see they have a light well right here.
Right.
So their only windows are either front, rear, or in the light wells. There are 2 light wells on that building.
Okay.
We have a question from Sean Sanger. Can you please describe head house and elevator override height?
Yes. Bill, can you go to the section drawing A3.1?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is shown here, and to the right, there's a dotted line over to the wrist. That line, that is a sight line taken from across the street on the back side of the sidewalk that is up against, for instance, modern pastry. So your sight line is that you don't see what is up there from the street. The height of the elevator, this elevator goes to the roof, okay? And it is therefore 16 and a half feet high. And adjacent to it, to the right, there's a door that is the upward run of the stair. Again, by code, in a 4-story or greater building, one is required to have a stair that goes to the roof. In fact, we in fact have 2 of them. And this is for this deck and elevator are proposed to be for the exclusive use of the top floor unit. That's the roof deck is not a community deck. It is only dedicated to the top floor unit.
And only 100 square feet.
Pardon?
And only 100 square feet. Correct.
Yes, 100 square feet, yes.
Does anyone have any questions?
This diagram also gives you a better aspect of the size of that middle light well.
Okay, Dave, next, and then Tom.
Yeah, hi, Dave Kubiak. 2 questions. How will residential trash be handled? The sidewalk out front is small and very, very active, so I wouldn't want to see more trash out on that sidewalk. And the other question is, I've become very concerned about fire safety ever since those 2 individuals were killed in the fire in the next block up on Hanover Street. Maybe it was about 5 years ago or so. Are there any building code or fire code violations? Those 2 questions.
Yeah, the answer is there will be no building code or fire code violations. This will be a fully sprinklered building. In fact, therefore, the building to our left is fully sprinklered. And when we did the renovation for Ed Capone's building many years ago, sprinklers were included in that building too. So this 3 set of buildings are, amongst some of the safest in the neighborhood.
And in addition to the sprinkler system, there will be 2 means of egress from each floor, at each floor?
Yeah, yes. If you go back, Bill, to a typical unit floor plan. Okay, so at the upper right, there's the set of stairs that comes up from the residence entry, if you will. And to the lower left, there's a set of stairs that comes up and goes all the way down to what is now the open patio area of the building. And again, on the first floor, that stays open. It is not enclosed. So we have totally adequate means of egress.
And the handling of residential trash?
Yeah, to answer that, Dave, is the restaurant has private trash pickup. They store their trash interior and it isn't taken out until it's picked up. The same will be done for the apartments in this building. They'll be part of the same trash removal. So it'll be stored internally in the basement, and then it'll be removed by the private contractor.
Thank you.
Mary or Tom, your mic is open.
Okay, I just have a comment. And my comment is this, that if there's anybody at this meeting who thinks that Hanover Street is not crowded enough already, then by all means, vote in favor of this project. Thank you.
Okay, Sean, I just opened your mic.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. So I just like to go back. I'm sorry, I don't want to kind of beat the dead horse here, but can we go back to that elevator? And I'm only saying this because I'm watching one go up behind my house on Endicott Street. And so I get the elevator access, that's great, to the roof deck. But typically there is an extension above that door that the elevator goes higher, and I'm not seeing in that drawing. So how does that elevator actually work? When you go above,
Okay.
there's a zone or space, my understanding, that needs to be above
Yeah.
that doorway that gets you out of the deck.
Generally, okay, that from your top floor or the floor that an elevator lands on, you go, it depends on the elevator, but generally it's, you go 12'3" to the underside of the carriage beam. And the beam we figure will be, you know, a 16-inch beam. So if we were 12'4" and you did 16 inches, you would be 13'8". And then for the structure above that, another 6 inches. So that's how you get the overall, the total override.
So, okay, so is it a matter of how the elevator is specified? Because there's definitely 2 other instances here in the neighborhood, and I'm just trying to get an understanding of how they work. Is if the elevator goes up to the roof deck, you come out that door, I totally get it. But typically there's room above that for that elevator that extends above it, is what I'm seeing in other instances in the neighborhood. Is it just a different type of elevator?
That's right. The normal elevator cab is in the 8'6", 8'6" range. So there is a good 4 feet above the elevator cab. Then you hit the carrying beam, and then on top of that is the roof of the enclosure. That's why you're in that 14, 15-foot range. In our case, one thing you may be seeing in the other projects you're referring to is they may also have incorporated the elevator machine room up at the roof. Our elevator machine room is in the basement.
Okay, all right, thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, I had my mic closed. Mary Beth, and then Dave.
Hi there. You had mentioned earlier that there was a similar building in South Boston. I think I know what you're talking about, the Publico restaurant.
That's right, absolutely. Yep.
Is that the same architect that, because I've been there several times. I know that they have that open airway and the apartments looking down.
Yeah, I happen to be the architect. Yes.
Oh, you are the of Publico?
Yeah, of the whole building, yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I'm familiar with that building.
Yeah, and you know, the reason for that was to provide a maximum number, a good number of units. That project has 30 units, and we have adequate light and air for all of the units.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? If they're not, I'll need a motion. Somebody like to make a motion? Dave, I'm going to open your mic because you can make the motion.
I knew you'd pick on me.
I like you had your hand up before.
I move that NEWRA members vote either in support or in opposition to the appeal that will allow the zoning appeal to allow the construction of these building improvements.
And I'm going to second it. And I'm putting my email address in the chat again. Send me a note. And we will get results to you in the morning, or at least I will, and let everybody know. Does anyone else have any other questions or any other business? If not, we can adjourn. I'm just looking to see if anybody has their hand up. I do not see it. Our next meeting is December 9th. Thank you very much for coming this evening. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll see you December 9th.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.